For this next uh, video, we're going to talk about project management, or as I would like to call it, the social architecture of the project. Um, Big projects of all type require a lot of social interaction to get anything done. Um, Communication is just central to building big things, and so that's true of Galaxy as much as anything else. And so we'll talk a little bit about that and other ways to get things done in Galaxy. Um, Here's a quick start version of this talk. Essentially available in Galaxy Project /Galaxy /contributing. Um, but this is going to cover, I think, a lot more than that. But that is a place to get started with when thinking about how to contribute to Galaxy. Um, so contributing to Galaxy, basically all contributions to the code base come through pull requests. There's a few exceptions. These include security patches, some packaging and release process artifact stuff that won't make functional changes to the code base, and then backporting fixes that have already had pull requests to older releases. And for these exceptions, only a select group of committers can make these sort of direct commits, but all the committers and all external contributors, for the most part, use pull requests to make changes to Galaxy. I mentioned briefly security issues. We have a whole policy document around that, put together by Helena. The long and short of it is, if you find a serious security vulnerability with Galaxy, please don't create an issue for it. Please don't open a pull request. Instead, please email Galaxy committers at list.galaxyproject.org. We have some time in this video. We'll briefly walk through this security policy document. It's in galaxy/securitypolicy.md. Mentions this email. Mentions you've got 2 business days to respond to your request. And then we talk about, if there are security problems, what we support. And then the idea here is that we support the last 12 months of releases. So yeah, that's the lifetime. You can expect your sort of guaranteed security patches on Galaxy. We frequently do patch older Galaxies, especially for these security issues, but that's sort of what we agreed to. The document also lays out issue severity. So we call a high severity security issue these things: remote code execution, an SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and any issue that allows user impersonation. There may be others. So this is not an exhaustive list, but this is sort of the big things we have seen in the past and would sort of expect to see in the future, potentially. From sort of medium and low severity issues, we call these things like unvalidated redirects or forwards, and then more importantly, more commonly, issues due to really uncommon configuration options. So Galaxy has a million configuration options. Some of them we sort of know to be less tested, at least, if not less secure. And so these kinds of configuration options may sort of lead to us just patching Galaxy and not going through the whole release process for these security issues. And what is that process exactly? So when we get a security, a sensitive security patch, and we want to apply it, we actually give public Galaxy servers 3 days notice to get the public servers patched for the supported releases. And then we announce the security issue publicly, along with patching Galaxy directly. And we do that to the Galaxy announcements mailing list. This embargo window for the public servers may be shortened if there's like an ongoing issue that we know is actively hurting servers. Otherwise, we sort of like to give the administrators there a few days to respond. One last note about the security issues: if you've got a security patch or a security vulnerability you found and you report it, please let us know like which organization you work for and stuff, because we'll give you credit when we announce the issue. This is a huge deal. if you're like giving us a patch or even letting us know, you're going outside the sort of standard GitHub procedures, and so we appreciate that work and we want to acknowledge it. We mentioned branches briefly there, the 12 months worth of branches that we support for security releases. So like quickly, the branches you might care about are the development branch. This is the main branch that you hit when you land on Galaxy Project/Galaxy. It's dev. This is where new features have to be added. The master branch references the latest stable branch. Generally, this is not something that you should target because the version that it's on, the like major version that it's on, changes without really notice, but it's sometimes useful for tooling, for instance. But what you really probably do want to target if you're running a production server is one of the major release branches. At the time of this recording, 2105 is the latest release branch. As you can see, it's named by the year and month. And we do about 3 releases a year. So we've mentioned a few different policies now, and you may wonder, like, where do these policies come from? And all of the repository governance for Galaxy Project/Galaxy is done via pull request and done via public voting, and it's all open source and available. So Galaxy, what I like to say is Galaxy goes beyond open source to open governance. So when we first started doing this sort of public policy, the open governance stuff, we established a group of committers. The committers group is a group of trusted developers and advocates who manage the core Galaxy code base. And they're the people who get to vote on these pull requests, veto changes, etc. Galaxy committers are the only individuals who may commit to the core Galaxy code base. And then committers may participate in all formal votes, including votes to modify team membership, merge pull requests, and modify policies. All of this is laid out in the, let me see, no. All this is laid out in doc, source, project, organization. So this is the procedure guide. It lists what documents are considered formal procedures that need additional votes. Specifies the role of the committers list, how we vote for membership, what a committer is allowed to do, what the expectations are, and then how pull requests are handled. So any committer, every pull request needs at least one external vote beyond the author of the pull request to merge from a committer. Any committer may veto any pull request, so it's a lot of power the committers have. So we try to keep the list sort of focused and focused on people who have a broad knowledge of Galaxy, have shown broad interest in many different parts of Galaxy, etc. So while only committers get to actually formally vote for pull requests and merge them, we generally do encourage everyone to look at pull requests and comment on them. The way to become a committer is to knowledgeably review pull requests, demonstrate that you care about these issues, that you can contribute to understanding pull requests, thinking about whether they're worthwhile to include, etc. Yeah. So in addition to this committers group, we have some other groups now. Over the last year, we've added this concept of working groups to Galaxy. Here's a quote from the working group website. Galaxy has grown a lot over the years, going from a project with one university in 2005 to a global community it is today. Several parts of Galaxy's ecosystem have become avowedly and obviously community-driven during that time, including tools and training and several other international efforts. Galaxy Working Groups is push this global model to other areas of Galaxy as well. And so we're trying to get more people involved, more groups, more ways for people to have influence, more ways for people to take responsibility and contribute. So check out the working groups, see if there's any that you're interested in there. Back end, front end, workflows, training, scientific applications, support, etc. So this is a lot of different people contributing in a lot of different ways. And basically everyone is covered under the code of conduct. Again, this is a document that is included in the Galaxy code base. It's galaxy/codeofconduct.md. Describes expectations and encourages diversity and describes how to report issues such as unacceptable behavior. We're working on like an updated code of conduct, but right now the code of conduct from 2015 still stands. Be friendly and patient, be welcoming, be considerate, be respectful, be careful about the words we choose, and try to understand why we disagree. I think this last one is very important. I've had many disagreements with many different people across the Galaxy community, and I've always found that everyone is, really intelligent and really has, they may disagree with me or my thoughts or, my perspective on things, but they have a completely valid perspective and they're advocating from a good position. And it makes a lot of sense to try to understand why they disagree. And sort of that's the key to working through a lot of these issues in a respectful manner, I think. We're committed to diversity. If there are issues and people experience or witness unacceptable behavior, there's a few people to contact, and you can choose whoever you feel more comfortable with. Dave Clements is the community outreach manager and has experience with code of conduct issues. Mike Schatz is his boss and direct manager. And so, yeah. And then Helena is a well-known and trusted community member. So whoever you feel most comfortable, if you feel most comfortable emailing all three of them, etc., whatever you think is appropriate. And then just sort of this code of conduct is based on the open code of conduct from the to-do group, though we made some modifications, obviously. We've mentioned releases a few times. There's processes, less formal, but there are processes around how we do this release process every 4 months. And it's largely guided by an auto-created self-documenting release issue. And so these slides have a link to the latest, the 2105 release issue. Yeah, and if you go through it, you can sort of see each release has a release manager. Marius has been the release manager for the past several releases now. He's doing a great job. Got the prep. So we do a branch of the release, generally at the beginning of the month, before the release should be released, finalized. We check for blocking PRs, we merge everything in, and then we create the new branch. We create the branch, but it's not released yet. We make sure all new pull requests target, the subsequent release. So when we branched 2105, we made sure that all new pull requests were targeting 2109 because we're essentially done adding features unless there's something really important in that final window. We check for security issues. We make sure that if we can do a security fix release, timed with the issue release. We deploy to a test server and then to our production server a week later. We've got a process around creating the release notes. And then finally, generally weeks later, we actually do the release. Yeah. In the last several releases, we've also had a QA team do a deep dive, a sort of manual testing of Galaxy. So the number of processes around doing the release and the quality of the releases, I think, is increasing over time due to this process. We even track how we announce the release and prepare for the next release, etc. Then the working groups create roadmaps. Well, it is still a new process, but I think our thinking going forward is that working groups will create roadmaps that are aligned with each release, and those roadmaps are coordinated with project leadership. We've been through this process a few times now, but what we're sort of understanding or working towards in the last couple months here is actually making sure these things align with the release themselves. So thinking about contributing to Galaxy, it's not just pull requests, I mean, but it's also issues, and we have a lot of them. If we look at, we've got over 1,500 issues, it looks like, and over 150 open pull requests. A lot of those pull requests are work in progress things. Um, but one mechanism we use to try to sort of triage these things or reason about them in a coherent manner, despite the number of them, is GitHub tags. And so we use tags for a variety of things. We've got some kind tags, tags that are, well, here, let's open a pull request and look at it. Yeah, so we've got what kind of tag it is. So it could be a bug, an enhancement, a feature, or a refactoring. We've got various areas that it might belong to. These are all sort of important, so you can go in and filter by the tags to see information, recent changes about a component that's interesting to you. An important tag in here is help wanted. This is mostly on issues. We mark issues that are sort of, potentially beginner-friendly issues. So during GitHub Hacktoberfest, for instance, we rename Help Wanted to Hacktoberfest to let people all over the world know they can contribute to Galaxy. We mentioned, enhancement, feature, refactoring. We tag major on things that we think probably are big features that should be highlighted in the release notes. Merge and minor are basically things that don't belong in release notes, like merging an old branch forward, or minor is like a change to an existing PR that was merged in this release cycle. So maybe you tweak a PR that's already been merged, might mark it as minor so that we don't generate two release note items for the same essential concept. Papercut's a lot like beginner friendly. It's something generally user facing, something that a researcher might consider a paper cut, like some small issue with Galaxy that makes it slightly hard to use. And we're sort of exploring the idea of having paper cut contribution fests, where we encourage people to sort of pick up an issue and work on it to make sort of the end user experience a little better. We don't generally use the popularity tags. We do use work in progress for draft PRs. PRs aren't ready for merge. Planning for long-term issues, long-term PRs, things that we want a lot of feedback on. And then triage is a tag that basically means we haven't gone through and updated things yet. We haven't assigned the tags, so a bot will automatically assign the triage tag. And then procedures is an important tag, and pull requests marked as procedures refer to those procedure documents that we talked about earlier and require basically a fourth of the active committers to approve it and an extra long time window for it to be open before it can be merged. So there's a lot of thought around that, those procedures. When you're contributing to Galaxy, we run a bunch of CI, continuous integration things. So here there's 31 different checks. That's a lot of green arrows. And let's see, I think I can go through and talk about what they all are, but I think the important takeaway here is with 31 checks, you're going to get some transient redexes sometimes. So it makes sense before you get too discouraged to go through and look at the test and see if it makes sense for whether it's failing for you. Don't be afraid to ask. It's a complex system and there's always a lot of noise. We do so much work to try to make the tests less transiently failing, and they still fail all the time. So Git code and test is our one circle CI test currently. It tests a few different things, some linting, some unit tests. Most of the things we've moved away from Circle CI and Jenkins and to GitHub over the last year. We'll talk about integration tests and Selenium tests a little bit later on in the talk. Python linting makes sure that that all the code passes a linter. And we do that for Python 3.9 and 3.6 currently. So the oldest and the newest Python releases we support. We run the unit tests. So these are the quicker tests. Yeah. So there's just a lot of variety of different tests, and we've got a nice test document. We'll talk a little bit more about that stuff later on, I think. Um, Actually, we may not. So if you go to docs.galaxyproject.org, we do cover what the different test types are, how to run them, where they're located, and how to debug them. And so if you go to docs.galaxyproject.org, you can find all of that there. That's useful for trying to sort of decipher what these things are. We mentioned linting and formatting. You can run those linting and formatting tests locally pretty easily. We've got linting for both Python and ES6, the client code. The linting process captures many common problems and enforces a common code style for both Python and ES6. The output from the continuous integration system is relatively straightforward. So you can use the pull request itself to look at and figure out what's wrong with your pull request, but you can also just run them locally. The Python linter can be run with the Tox application using tox-e space lint. The client code formatting guidelines are much more strict because we use a toolkit called Prettier that sort of automatically applies to every line of code. So you can use make client format to sort of format your code after you're done developing it, and then make client lint to sort of check that the code is formatted properly, and use ESLint to check for common issues with your code. In addition to that, linting the code, the source, with the starting with release 2101, we're also beginning to do type checking on the Galaxy backend. So we've completed the transition to Python 3. We started adding type annotations to various parts of the code. Imported library types are not enforced, but types inside of Galaxy types are sort of checked. Yeah. And again, like the linting, if there's an issue, the reports are pretty easy to decipher. Hopefully, it's pretty straightforward what to do to fix it. Yeah, and generally, problems with MyPy can be fixed with just typing a single variable. But yeah, feel free to request help if you need to know what that should look like. If your code mostly works but the typing's just wrong, that's usually an easy fix. As with the linting, typing is something you can check locally with tox-e MyPy. And there's some links here for why add type annotations to Python code, and then a cheat sheet for working with MyPy and like the typing module. So these are the typing module is like types that you can annotations that describe standard library code, or useful things like dictionaries, lists, etc., tuples. So check out those 3 links if you're interested in Python. If you're an old school Python programmer like me, interested in learning how to do typed Python. Galaxy developers use a wide variety of IDEs, and we don't offer necessarily any formal recommendation over any other. Is a slide that I used to have. Over the last couple of years, though, we've added a lot more documentation and support around VS Code. So I know that a lot of serious developers still use VI, and I used Sublime up until very recently. But the VS Code, Visual Studio Code, has just been really great, and we've added some documentation for debugging Galaxy Server and running Galaxy tests from inside of the code. Again, this is on docs.galaxyproject.org. Let's see. So it's nice little, VS Code configuration for running Galaxy, and those stay pretty much up to date because Marius uses this all the time, and he's quite a productive programmer. Galaxy does have a Git pod configuration. It's one of those check marks when you see the PR to help you sort of launch an IDE and edit the code right from the web browser. So we've been exploring this Git pod thing here. yeah, so the idea behind Get to Pod is you can have a little development environment for editing a PR, running tests, etc. I've linked to here a video of Marius presenting GitPod at the latest Galaxy Developer Roundtable meeting. So check that out if you're interested more in like in-browser development of Galaxy. And then, yeah, finally a slide for that docs.galaxyproject.org page that we've seen a few times. Um, it's a good updated location for all of this stuff that we've talked about. So we've got developer documentation, some information about the Galaxy API that's a little dated. The individual doc store module, not doc store, the doc strings, the PyDocs for the individual modules that make up Galaxy. Again, typing has improved these tremendously. Those documents that I mentioned around project governance and issue management are here. Our release notes are here, and then a lot of admin documentation here that's pretty good and pretty up to date for the most part. Special topics, how to enable FTP uploads using interactive tools, tool dependency stuff, job metrics, the bug reports plugin stuff, etc. So special topics that go into deep dives here with written documentation. Yeah, and that I think is the social aspect, the social architecture of the Galaxy project. Thanks.